Welcome to my channel. Today, a stash, not trash. We're going to turn napkins into collage papers. Recently, I went through my napkins and I pulled a bunch that weren't inspiring me, aren't something that I would use in my art, or I've used them, or I had too much of them. So these are the 10 that you're going to watch me transform into something we can use in our mixed media and art journaling projects. So to start off with, you're just going to open up the napkins and take off the excess plies. And I've done that with all the napkins that you're going to see me transform. Now, why would I take the effort of making these napkins into collage papers? When you decoupage napkins down, you get some wonderful texture. And we are going to benefit from whatever colors and patterns they've put down. Then I'm going to take the napkin and place it. I'm using some old packaging from STENCILS. You could put it on plastic liners, but you don't, it's because the paint is going to bleed through. You want to have something, so scrap papers of whatever kind. So all I'm doing here is I'm picking a stencil and I am painting onto the napkin. Now I'm making sure that the paint isn't too wet because that will rip the napkin. Now on this one, I'm putting white paint through this knitted stitch stencil. And that's really knocking back the pattern. And that's what we want to do. We want to stop seeing the picture that is in the napkin and just bring out the colors or the patterns that are there. So here I'm taking the stencil and I'm putting one color of paint covering all of it. And I'm peeking behind because it's a bit of a challenge, especially when you start, to figure out whether this is giving you something that you're going to like and you're going to want to use. So here I put blue behind there, and then I put black, and I like the black better. The blue just didn't show up, so I'm covering it with black. So as you go through this process, you're going to become more creative, and you're going to get more ideas. So here I'm just lining up the stencil, and I'm going to continue with the white because I really like how that knocks back the beautiful colors or the patterns of this stencil, of the napkin, but gives kind of a frosted look. And again, I'm using a makeup sponge. I'm patting off the paint before because I don't want it wet. And I have it sitting on some packaging, or you might want scrap paper underneath because it does bleed through. So if you don't take off the excess plies, they'll stick together permanently. And look at this. I absolutely love it. And now the usability of this napkin goes beyond having colorful leaves. At the end of the video, I am going to show how to store these collage papers and how to use them, as well as go through all of them. So on this napkin, I am going to, it looks like a fall color. I'm using this leafy texture stencil, and instead of just white or one color, I'm putting yellow and burnt sienna and orange through the stencil, and it's making these wavy lines. And again, we are getting rid of the picture that was in the napkin, but any place that we aren't putting paint is the patterns and the colors that were in the napkin. They're going to come through. Now those excess plies, you could make collage papers out of them and just stencil right onto a single ply of the white. So don't throw them out. So there we have it. Now at this stage, I might have set it aside. And I come back later to add the next layers. But for the video, I'm going to show one napkin through its entirety. So if I do one stencil or 5. Here I've splattered paint on it. Now the thing about this is the napkin is raw. So if it hits where there is just the napkin, it may wick out and you may not like that effect. So try it and see and make your decision. So after this had dried, I came back and I added the Swiss dot stencil. Now basically here I'm doing kind of a collage paper / masterboard where I can use these papers as an instant background in my art journaling and mixed media projects. Now all the napkins that I'm using for this are 6.5 by 6.5. So that gives us 13 by 13 inches. So this is a big collage paper. So that's going to give you lots of opportunities for use. And I like how this black, again, we're layering, but the first several layers are what the napkin already had. So this duck one, now I used one of those duck pictures, but I don't need to do more pages of this. So here I'm using the stencil Mermaid tail, and I start with just white, but I look at it and that's a little too dull. So then I add some yellow and some green. And again, in this case, I'm taking colors that are already present in the napkin. So if you're beginning, you can learn from what's there and play that up. Our end goal is to get a collage paper that we can use for multiple projects. Whereas a collage paper where it's a duck in a pond, that has limited usability. Now all the napkins you see here are perfectly good napkins. They're ones that I have multiples of or that I've used already, and I'm just ready to make room for other things in my stash, but I can't throw them out. Most of the stencils that I use initially are the 12 by 12, and they are all from the Crafters Workshop, and I will list them in the description box because there's some real winners in here. And you can get those at NinnysNapkins.com or TCW Shopify store, and there's links to those stores in the description box as well. At this point I thought, oh, I'm going to try blue with this part, this little excess part. And when I put the blue in there, which is in the napkin, I really like the play between the yellow and the blue. I did splatter with blue all over, but it didn't give me enough blue. So I grabbed, I believe this is the Screen View stencil, and I'm putting in turquoise blue on this. So now, do you see the duck? Do you see the pond? No, what we have is a beautiful collage paper. Now, wherever it is white in the napkin, that's going to go translucent when you decoupage it on. So you get that translucent quality that you can't get any other way. Now this napkin, I noticed, has a border. So before I turn it into a collage paper, I am going to salvage or harvest the border. And I can use this border on an art journal page, just like that. So once I've saved the borders for another purpose, I am now going to turn what's left of this napkin into a collage paper. Now these have some very, very bright colors, and I want to mute those colors down. So I'm going in with this Fantangle stencil with white. Now with the white, I am okay with some areas being more opaque and some areas not, being less opaque. I like that variation. Again, this stencil is called Fantangle. And now I'm putting it all over, which I don't stencil all over for everyone. So you're going to see a lot of variations as I go through transforming the 10 napkins into collage papers or Insta backgrounds. Loving that. It knocked back that brightness of the color and turned it into something that I can see myself using. And then I decide I'm going to add a little bit of contrast with black and the Swiss dot stencil. The stencils that I'm using, if I'm using 2 or 3 stencils on one paper, I often change the scale of the stencil. Now this octopus stencil, again, it's not something I'm going to do multiple pages on. Now I could take a 6x6 stencil and do each separate quadrant, or if you have 12x12, you can use that. Now I'm back to using this knitted stitch stencil, which I absolutely love. And this time, because there's blue in the background, I picked 2 colors that I know are going to look good with that blue, this bright aqua green and the purple. And that's knocking back the octopus so you can't quite see it. It's adding some more pattern and visual texture, and definitely introducing a couple new colors. But you may notice when I peek, the octopus is still fairly visible. So if I wanted to use this as a Insta background, do I want to be able to see the octopus? Not so much. All that means is that I'm not done adding layers to this paper. I'm loving the additional colors. I'm loving how the blue goes with the teal and the purple. Now you could have put yellow and green with that blue, and it would give a whole different look. So if you have a couple napkins, you can do one color scheme and another a different color scheme. Have fun. And I know in the stash builder videos, I tend to get way more creative as I go. First, I try to logic things out too much, and then I just follow my instincts. So to get rid of being able to see the octopus, I'm coming in with this Barberry bud stencil. And this is adding these little leaf motifs throughout. And instantly, because you've now added some more layers, you're not seeing the octopus. You see some swirls and some movement in the background. And when I cut this down to size to use on a 4x4 or a 6x6, you'll see it even less noticeably. I absolutely love this. So this napkin has really small yellow flowers, which I am not willing to fussy cut, which is why it's in the discard pile. I decided to add a pop of color here with quinacridone magenta and this hole punch stencil. Now, this video is sped up quite a bit because there was over 2 hours of footage that I've gotten down to under 40 minutes. But you need to go, this process is fairly slow. You don't want to glob on the paint because the napkin gets too wet, then it's going to rip. So you need to take your time. And I highly recommend that you don't attempt to do so many in one sitting. This I did over several stash builder sessions. So I loved it here. I thought that just made it so pretty. The yellow and the pink just really played off each other really well. But I wanted to add some contrast, so I came in with this ethereal stencil. And just this motif is going not all over, just in a few places. In a lot of ways, turning these napkins into collage papers is the same process as doing a masterboard. You are layering pattern and color one upon the other. Now, you could put modeling paste through a stencil, but the napkin becomes very fragile. So I would save that for adding after I use it as an Insta background. And then I'm coming in with this Art Is stencil to get some black script. So what started with a napkin that I wasn't going to use, it's not the way I art journal, to a napkin that I can't wait to use. Now this stencil is called Jungle Vines, and actually there's a jungle on the napkin. And I'm putting white in here. I'm muting that color and just seeing what's going to happen. And a lot of the stencils, when I go in with white, you'll notice they have fairly large openings. And that's because I want to knock this back. So I'm loving the movement here and the muted frosty color of those vines in the white. I'm thinking, yes, that was an absolute good choice. That was the dotted ring stencil, but I guess I changed my mind. Now I'm coming in with Diamond Dash in black, and I'm just adding a little smaller scale black. Sometimes it's like, I love it here, should I continue? Experiment. It is a napkin that I had slotted to throw away. Worst case scenario, it ends up in the trash, in the recycle bin. Best case scenario, you turn it into collage papers that you can use. So instead of buying collage papers, you've turned something that you already had into a collage paper. And that leaves your crafting dollars to buy other things. Then I'm coming in with turquoise. I'm introducing color with this Swiss dot stencil. There's that little bit of blue in the background. So again, I'm taking the color from what was in the napkin and bringing it out. Or I'm choosing what colors that were in the napkin to bring out. So with this stencil, I'm using, this is called Fanciful Fern. It's a slimline stencil from the Crafter's Workshop, and I'm coming in with quinacridone magenta, and I'm going all over this napkin. Now the colors that I'm using, again, are in that napkin. So you've seen me put white or black on, you've seen me use the colors that are in the napkin, and you've seen me add colors to what might be a very monotone or one color napkin. This is your time to play and explore with colors and patterns. This is a great way to get out some new stencils or stencils you haven't used in a while and see what they can do. There I'm thinking about which stencil. Then I grab this Petal Splash stencil with white, and I'm adding the white on top. Whatever you put on top pushes back what's behind it, and it becomes more forward. So you've seen me do white first and then color, and now you're seeing me doing the color and then the white. On some napkins, I only use one stencil. Some I've used two. Some I've used three. I think one here I even use 4 on, and it might be this one. This stencil is called Leafy Fans, and I'm using purple. Now, there was some purple in the background, and I'm just adding it somewhere on here. So I'm doing on this napkin what I would do on an art journal page when I create a background. The benefit is this is now going to be in my stash, so I can just use it as an instant background, and that's really going to jumpstart my art journaling mixed media session. Now I love the fall colors of this, but the bird is too small, so I'm going to make the most of the colors, and I come in with this scattered branch stencil, and I'm putting black through it because I love the contrast here, and there it looked like it was in the trees. And then I wasn't sure about that, so I went to the diamond plate stencil, this time in the 12-inch. And I like that effect as well. So here you're going to see me do one thing on one side of the napkin and a different thing on the other. So you could do that, keeping in mind that that's going to limit the size of whatever project you can use them on. But if I was just doing 6x6s or 5x7s with it, that would work, and I could have 2 very different outcomes on one out of one napkin. Here I'm putting the art is stencil because I like that little bit of script, and I'm liking the look of that, so I just continue with it. Don't be afraid to try things out. That's how you're going to discover what works and what you like or don't like. Some of these napkins you might say, oh, I would do this with this, and you wouldn't turn it into a collage paper. Some of the collage papers that I end up with, you go, yeah, really don't like that, Karen. You do you, and I'll do me, and just follow this process. Here I'm splattering with gold. I went back, so I've got the scattered branch on the one side with the script, and the diamond plate, diamond plate on the other side. I love how this one transformed. I'm using this stencil. It's called Quatrefoil Reversed. It's an old one. One of the first stencils I owned. I'm putting that in black. Bringing out the black against the gold. High contrast. That works. Now I'm using Liquitex Basics paint. It's a medium bodied paint. If you are using thinner paint, craft paint, it may soak into the napkin a little bit differently, so you're going to have to test it and see. Then I'm coming in with Aqua, which is a contrasting color. It's a complementary color across the color wheel with the screen view stencil. And I love the play. And then I'm adding just a little bit of white with Diamond Dash. Loving how that one turned out. So here are my papers. They're all perfectly dry, and I folded them back up into their 6.5 by 6.5 shapes. And how would you store these? Well, because I have the collage papers and I want to make sure that I use them and don't just make them and store them, I want to use them. What I'm going to do is just take all 10 of these and put them in this, I believe it's 10 by 7. It's A5 size plastic pocket. Now I use this for my stamps, my ephemera, different things. I have ordered this multiple times, and I'll put a link to this because I love when I can use one organizing item for a multitude of purposes in my room. So I would just keep this and keep it on my desk close at hand, so I can just flip through them and pick one and use it for whatever collage I want. Now here are some other options. You can organize them according to color scheme and file them away with your gel prints and colored coffee filters, other stash items that are like. And I have that in my folding thing. Another way is you can use these plastic sheet protectors. This is how I store my regular napkins, in a binder, but I might start another binder with the collage papers that I've made out of napkins or tissue paper. This keeps them nice and neat, and if you've cut apart one and then you have little bits, they can be kept in there without falling out. So there's 3 what I think are really good options for storing these collage papers, so they're easily accessible. You pick the one that that's going to work for you. Which one will it be? Let me know in the comment section. So let's just look at some of these collage papers. Here is a 9 by 12 Canson mixed media sheet. This is a size that I often use. And as you can see, because this napkin, they're 6.5 by 6.5 napkins, they're 13 by 13, you can easily cover the 9 by 12 art journal page if you wanted to use it as an Insta border. And you have leftovers. You have 4 inches, so you could put the 4x4 coasters or fridge magnets or canvas boards or tags out of what's left over. So nothing is going to go to waste. Another popular size that I love to art journal on are my 7 by 10s. So as you can see, I can use part of the one napkin for a 7 by 10, and it leaves me lots of others. And then I can get some 6 by 6s for cards, or the art journal book that I made that's 6 by 6. I can use 5 by 7 cards or the 5 by 7 DIY journal that I made. Cardboard coasters or fridge magnets, the 4x4s. So you can see, out of one collage paper, I can get, depending on if I go really big, do a big art journal page, I can get 3 or 4 or even 5 different projects. And each one I can do up differently. So that's a lot of benefit for the time we put in. Another thing, you can take these collage papers and you can decoupage them onto metal pieces, such as this pail, this galvanized pail that I've primed. And I've got pails of various sizes, and I love decoupaging on them. Here I've made a color scheme that might match my bathroom, but we have lots of it, and I can take the second napkin and do the same. Now here is a page that I turned into a collage sheet just by stenciling on white. Now I can glue this onto an art journal page. This one's a 5 by 7 as an Insta background. This comes from my DIY art journal. Then I can add texture paste, other colors, or you can do the rip-a-strip, where you have little pieces of it on there, and then on the open parts you're going to add different colors or more colors and bring it out. You could also collage flowers or paint with the papers. So let's just do one. So I'm cutting it to size, and I use a rotary cutter if I'm getting a straight edge. I'm putting it on. Now this is a signature art journal page from my DIY 6x6 journal. And I'm using fluid matte medium underneath. Then I'm flipping the napkin over. And I'm using saran wrap to get rid of any of the wrinkles. It's a lot gentler. Now I did notice that because there's paint in it, the napkin, if you believe it, is a little bit more fragile. So be gentle. Then I'm gluing the other side down. Now I could have done, this is actually going to be 2 different pages. They're going to show up in different parts of my art journal. So I can do different things with the same background. Start. Just checking that the corners are fully down. And I put a coat of the fluid matte medium on top to seal the napkin. And you want to do that. So I could take all these napkins that I've turned into collage papers, go to my 6x6 DIY journal, and glue down Insta backgrounds for all of them. And I would have 10, actually 20 pages. So once that's dry, I'm just going to, I cut off the excess, and I'm going to put it back into my DIY signature. This was a no-sew bind art journal that I made. So I'm just going to slide it back in here. And now I've got a couple of backgrounds that I can pull out someday if I'm motivated or inspired by those colors, or I have a focal image that I think is going to go on those colors, and I'm at least halfway through that creative process. And it's just with other backgrounds. And you see how it's in different parts of my art journal. So you're going to have to stay tuned to see how I use these collage papers. As I said, they're going to stay on my desk. Now you can also put these on 6x6 or 5x7 card bases and leave a white border. So this is a 6x6 card, and I'm going to cut the collage paper into 5x5. And then all you have to do is glue it down, add a focal image and a sentiment. Easy peasy card. So once you have all those collage papers, I can go and make 40 cards with the collage papers that I made during this video. So let's look at all of them. So there's the napkin, and here's the collage paper. Now when I collage that down onto an art journal page, I can add more texture, more pattern. It's just the beginning of the page. Again, the napkin, and here's the transformation. From a bridge over troubled water to collage paper. Love, love, love this one. The colors, I love how the blue, the dark blue on the end. Another one that I love. There's so many that I love. Taking advantage of the colors that were given in the napkin. This one, the colors are just a little too bold for me, but now I have something that I can use. I apologize for the sirens. Something must be going on. Adding a different color to a very plain napkin. Using complementary colors to what's in the napkin. Using that teal with that yellow orange. picking the colors out of the napkin and adding a lot of layers and a lot of pattern. Yum. And don't forget, you can do half and half. Do different things on each half of the napkin.